Hello and welcome back to World 360. Why is a senior North Korean diplomat's decision to defect to South Korea significant? What's next for Rwanda after President Paul Kagame extended his 24-year rule by winning the recent election yet again? And how will France find its way out of a political gridlock that has been going on for almost 2 weeks now since the recently concluded election? We answer this and more in today's episode. Real Q is the name of a top North Korean diplomat who has made headlines this week after it was reported that he decided to defect to South Korea late last year. Ri was serving as a political counselor at the North Korean embassy in Cuba when he decided to defect. Defection is when a person deserts their own country or cause in favor of an opposing one. And as you know, North Korea and South Korea are regional foes. On 14th July, Real Q confirmed to a South Korean newspaper that he has defected to South Korea. Every North Korean thinks at least once about living in South Korea. Disillusionment with the North Korean regime and a bleak future led me to consider defection, he told South Korean newspaper The Chosen Ilbo. Rejoined the North Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1999. From 2016 to 2019, he worked as the Deputy Director for Latin American Affairs at the ministry's headquarters in Pyongyang before returning to Cuba as a counselor. South Korea's spy agency, the National Intelligence Service, has confirmed reports coming out recently. This is being viewed as a political blow to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, as this is the first major defection since 2016. So let's rewind the clock. Tae Yong-ho, a former North Korean deputy ambassador to the UK, had defected to South Korea back in 2016. Tae was later elected to the South Korean National Assembly in 2020, and he and his family currently live in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. The recent defection of Real Q is not all that surprising, given how Cuba and South Korea ties have been developing. And here's where the geopolitical context comes in. In February this year, South Korea scored a diplomatic victory against its rival North Korea by establishing formal ties with Cuba. This despite Cuba having been viewed as a traditional ally to North Korea. Cuba was also the only country in Latin America and the Caribbean that did not have diplomatic ties with South Korea until February this year. Before this, Cuba only had a non-resident ambassador in Tokyo, and South Korea had a non-resident ambassador in Mexico City. And therefore, what happened in February marked an important turnaround for South Korea in its efforts to strengthen its diplomacy in Latin America. In mid-February, South Korea announced it would be opening a diplomatic mission in Havana, Cuba's capital. This certainly rattled North Korea, which has enjoyed relations with Cuba since 1960, and most of its diplomatic footing is largely dependent on a number of Cold War allies. Now, Real Q's job in the North Korean embassy in Cuba was to thwart the establishment of relations between South Korea and Cuba. For our second topic, we are looking at the elections in Rwanda, where President Kagame has won yet again. Kagame has been in power since 2000, which means he will now be able to extend his 24-year rule by another 5 years. If he lasts till the end of his term, he will be serving almost 30 years, making him part of an exclusive list of the longest-serving world leaders, such as Russian President Vladimir Putin, Tajikistan's Emomali Rahmon, and the leaders of Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. If you recall, North Korea's founder Kim Il-sung ran the country for 46 years before dying in office in 1994. Now, back to Rwanda. 66-year-old Kagame has enjoyed his long tenure in power with a toothless opposition, having banned leading figures from participating in the political process. This time, others in the race included environmentalist Frank Habineza and ex-journalist and government advisor Philippe Mapiamana. It should also be noted that Diane Rawigara, an outspoken critic of Kagame, was disqualified from running in this election. Diane is a Rwandan women's rights activist, businesswoman and accountant who wanted to stand as an independent. In fact, she tried to stand in the 2017 elections but was disqualified then as well. At the time, she had launched an activist group called People's Salvation Movement but was later arrested on charges of incitement and fraud, which her supporters say were politically motivated. The case of Diane is interesting given Rwanda has the most women in parliament in the entire world. About 61% of lawmakers are female. And yet a woman has never been president of Rwanda, and Diane, the only female presidential candidate in the last two elections, has been disqualified. For our last topic, we're looking at politics in France, which continues to be in a state of disarray after the recently held elections on 7th July. It's now over 10 days since the election, and the government has been unable to form a coalition and nominate a prime minister. In fact, France's Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, officially resigned from his position on Wednesday, but has been appointed to lead a caretaker government as the dispute over the next French Prime Minister candidate continues among the coalition. In France, the Prime Minister holds the second highest office after the President. The caretaker government is necessary until a new cabinet is appointed, and it can run current affairs and emergency situations but doesn't have the power to submit new laws to Parliament, not even the annual budget. Now, the left parties in France secured a major victory in the latest election, despite expectations that the far right, led by Marine Le Pen, may make considerable gains. If we look at the results of the election, it's clear that the new Popular Front, or the NFP, led by the left, has made the most gains. The Yellow Ensemble Alliance is Macron's alliance, and the National Rally Alliance, or the RN, is the far right's alliance. As you can see, no group has an absolute majority. The left coalition itself is fragmented. The new Popular Front, or the NFP, includes socialists, the Greens, the Communist Party, and the hard left France Unbowed. And so it's up to these parties to agree on a prime minister. But remember, this coalition was only formed before the second round of the snap election in France, which means it was an alliance put together very last minute. And now the cracks are showing. French President Emmanuel Macron's hands are tied. He has the power to appoint a prime minister from the largest group in parliament, but there is still no clarity on which party from the left alliance it would be. But time's running out. This political deadlock should ideally be solved before the newly elected National Assembly is due to convene for the first time this week. Lawmakers are due to elect the lower house National Assembly Speaker, which is a powerful post. Since there were disagreements over the prime ministerial candidate, the left coalition has now shifted its focus to the Speaker post. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.